This day 812 of the Arukh HaShulchan Yomi. Like sponsor come to share the Arukh HaShulchan Yomi more. Please call me directly. Please contact me directly. Very greatly appreciated. Today we're doing Siman Tov Kuf Tes, Sif Yud Zayin, to Tov Kuf Yud, Sif Zayin. Sounds like a lot, but Tov Kuf Tes we left from last night. Only the last one, last Sif in the Siman. So the question was the tiltul of Mukta Shlo Tzorach Yontif, Tzorach Ochel Nefesh. Millennial Stati Loteb is a Kavanah Cheres Legamre. There's a different Kavanah altogether here in terms of the whether there's Mukta and Yontif or not. The body machal mukta asur chomi taltel. If it's food which is mukta, chomi definitely asur carrying it, moving it. Ganking. The egg which is later yontif can't be carried. Rak im machal ein mukta. Only if the food doesn't have mukta. Ach aidei yishtamshus b'machal yivka b'zeh is a mukta. But by using it, you might come into some mukta ma'akiva machal which will impede you from eating it. Well, if a kira, ein aminiach lavos b'shtira, such as the ashes at the bottom of the oven, do not allow you to properly bake the pashtida. And the plaster which fell into the oven does not allow you to properly bake the bread. Or the stone shamuksa does not allow you to impede upon your taking the fruit. That did not impede you from moving. Is bottom simchas yontif. They did not want the muktzah to negate your simchas yontif. Came to ikra machal muktzah since the food itself is not muktzah. So too when you only have nothing, you only have something to cover the blood of shchita, which is muktzah. Also, now to shech. There's the muktzah beikra achila. This is like muktzah in the actual eating. Since you're required to cover the blood, you can't check without covering. But if you already shechted, mutar lechasas both. So it sounds even tough tzadikes, which is a fascinating idea. But you can't shech latchila because you can't take the muktzah in order to it's muktzah ikra achila. The food is muktzah, so therefore you can't shecht it. But if you did shecht it, so then it falls in this category of peripheral issur at this point. I don't know if peripheral is the right term, but it is not. It's an issur which is impeding actual ochel nefesh at this point. Let's put it that way. Beforehand, chatchila, it's not impeding ochel nefesh. It's a chefza muktzah. Afterwards, when you already shechted it, it's chefza is ochel nefesh. The gavra is impeded from eating that chefza. You can move the muktzah for that purpose. Okay, that's what he seems to be saying. In order not to violate the mitzvah say kisadam, they did an issur in preparing this bird for eating on yontif when he didn't have proper material to cover it. That's a problem, but that's a problem which already has passed on the water in the bridge. It's a muktzah also now to cook and to fuel with muktzah wood. Also is you can't make the food into a food without muktzah. Have a muktzah machal atzma. It's a muktzah the machal and the food itself. Kira, opposed to plaster which fell, or the ashes in a oven. Or avni muktzah, muktzah stones. They're not directly related to fixing the food. They're like an aria de viola, the line crouching and not allowing you to get to the food. That's why you don't not concerned the muktzah on account of simchas yontif. And it says in brackets that it's a very very mechudesh sticker chiluk, but that's according to that he says everything works out well. That's Shabbat which you saw yesterday all work out fine and dandy. The Shabbat says he says to eat or to derive benefit from something which is muktzah in and of itself, such as to use muktzah fuel, etc., is also. Tough kufiyut. The varim asurim b'yotem mash mutar de shinui. Things are forbidden on yotem, but things you're allowed to do on with the shinui. Aleph, Moli Melio Shalchitim Shmel B'Yadach Shem Rakim. You can roll balls of chitim, of wheat, which you normally do when the wheat is soft. Even though by doing that, you're going to be removing the wheat from the chaff, from the husk. Dash, which is a derivative of dash. But that's not the normal way of doing disha. When you're moving the husk with your hand. For a minute. Which means beyontif, which means to break the pods, take out the beans. Shabbos, after even on Shabbos, you can't do that right near the shinoi. You don't require it. It's most of those require you even to make a shina to do the melila, which is removing the husk when you make into these balls with the top of his fingers. Shabbos also they do. And on Shabbos would be forbidden, according to this opinion. But that is a single opinion. Abraham says it's the Ran's opinion. The Ran himself says that the Rif doesn't agree with that. Chachamim said you can remove the legumes from the pods and the Shabbos also. It sounds familiar. Shabbos it's also. The world is not properly meticulous about this. When the middle in Yontav biyad, the other with the hand, to blow on these balls of grain a little bit in your hand, or in some sort of pot. Then it's like small vessel which you put a little bit on one side, and the food comes on the other side. And the refuse remains in the vessel, so maybe it's more like a teapot. Also, you can do a little bit. It's not going to be the derech of disha. But not with sieves or colanders. We put a line in it once, we have a dash, and that is considered to be dash. But a few we are also the five that are tablet. We just your hands not to scatter a lot on a tablet. Leave when we talk and do brayer from it. The Mexican command over your macher looks like you're doing something for the next day. V'gam abreiras kidneys gain is also true by selecting legumes, as we shall see. With a pair b'chol kocho, you're allowed to blow, I guess to remove the chaff from your grain with all your might. Kimakasa Rambam, Mechena bar kidneys, b'yontav bar kadarko. Somebody who's selecting legumes on Yontav selects according to his normal fashion. B'cheko with tamchui. With his hand, or literally in his lap, and with a pot. And not with a sieve, nor some type of tablet, another type of sieve. When there's more food than there is refuse, which normally, well, let's see next time. If there's more refuse than there is food, you remove the food and leave the psolas, which is, of course, what you normally do in Shabbos. Yes, if it's more of a tircha to remove the refuse from the food more than to remove the food from the refuse, even though the food is the majority, you do vera on the food and leave the refuse. That kind of show. What does it mean to say? You do brayer normal way when it's not Shabbos. Just remove the refuse from the food. That is the definition of Malacha Borer. But this is when the food is more. There's more food. Does the tircha because there's less tircha if you select the refuse. But if there's more refuse, you should select the food. The tircha it's less effort. Removing the refuse. But if the effort required to remove the refuse is greater, such as where refuse is very, very thin and hard to get up, and the food is very thick and easy to handle, as if even there's more food, remove the food. Go after wherever it requires less effort. He says that even there's more refuse than food, ain't ochel batal apsoras. We don't say that food is negated by the refuse, and with the heavy isagama that this whole thing should be awesome. That's now the two roads. The two is really the psos move asur gamri. Two roads where there's more psos and ochel, it's forbidden at all to do borer. The Torah says who's selecting legumes or other stuff. So there's more effort required to remove the food and the refuse, such as where the food is more prevalent. You do normal borer to remove the refuse and toss it. In Torah, but if it's more difficult to remove the psolas, go to dak, such as when it's thin. No, you take the food and leave the refuse. The dafka shochem mubal apsolas can become usar, but it's only where the food is more than the refuse in its volume. Apsolas will become usar. If the refuse is greater in its volume, also I feel the tautulo. You can't even move the mixture. The ochel sha'ochel batal rov. The mutter food is batal in the rov, which is not edible for you on your nevertheless, losing mubatnim, different types of nuts and ishtab, which broke by nine, and they're still mixed in with their shells. Abishab sos mubal echel, even there's more refuse than food, mutar they're permitted. Lo mikre psolas mubal ochel. It's not called having more refuse than food. Came under Chayabachi because this is their normal derech, which is the reason why you can peel stuff, fruit on Yontif, on Shabbos and Yontif. It's not considered borer. Came to Chayabachi have a commotion shamel pri, because that is the normal way these things come, but it's considered to be a shomer. And that's a shomer, it's not considered to be soulless. The low dami, that's almost a clip, it's not like bones and peels, which are which comes completely separate from the food, when they're actually considered to be refuse. I can't show. Move on for me, the two words it's obvious. I'm losing mubanim, even nuts, if they're not mixing with their shells, the rock is the same as everything else. If there's more refuse, they're not allowed to move them. Since they're not still attached, so the shells are not a shomer, they're not made to preserve the fruit. And having so it's like everything else, the minority is notified by the majority. I'm lost really bittles. I'm doesn't hold this bittle. If you can't have a call out right, because everything comes with food and refuse mixed together. Sometimes one is great amount, so the other one's greater amount. Hey, the Kaimel on the Dina, Rambam. Arab, the Psak Halacha is like the Rambam. The Kavon. The Kavon, I'm sorry. The Kavon Shemir is Rabbanim, since we're talking about Rabbanim, Shebora Becheko with Hamchui, where you're doing a borer not with industrial, but personal. So therefore, Holchim Hagel. We go to Machlekes Rabbanim Bekula. But in front of what I was saying about Rosh Hashanah, Lo Yavil, the sea-based rock that's around me. Only put the ram down. A lot of agencies will lean with borer on Yontif over Shabbos. The Shabbos is the machine who tests the borer so gamre. By Shabbos now to remove the refuse at all. The con here, we allow them removing themselves when it's less effort. With Shabbos, the time show feeling be us open to psolas, and by Shabbos, even when we allowed removing food from refuse, it's only to eat immediately, not to leave it later that day. You're allowed even to leave for later in the day. Hamagi Mishnah. Einsham. Zesh Kos Rabbeinu Rama B'Seit Racy Base, it's Rama writes, Bar Gedako B'Cheko V'Tam Chui, you do borer in his lap, or in a pot, he motzla chlo b'avayel wants to eat any time that day. Not for tomorrow. The machar halalayla aser for the next day or for the night time. It's also time you're doing with for a weekday. But if that same day, it's most even not going to eat immediately. And here it says in the brackets, on the base, I Shama other Kamras Kidvay the Yuka Asi. Oh, I'm not sure exactly what the Magen Avraham is saying, but according to Arukh HaShulchan, the Magen Avraham diuk is not a diuk. Vav. Shadas Rashba Zal. The opinion of the Rashba is the Gam B'Yontif Tzarech Libor Lechol Alter Gom Shabbos. They have to bring it for immediate use, like Shabbos. So Shemagam Mishnah Cholakra. Magam Mishnah argues. Ve'Ramah Pasak Masonah Ramah Pasak Magam Mishnah. Yesh Magam Sheskim with the Rashba. Some Gedolim agree with the Rashba. For Gedolim Pasak Magam Mishnah, most of Gedolim Pasak like the Magam Mishnah. Komakam Mishi Rei Elokim. Somebody who's God fearing. Yesh Lechush Divrei Rashba Lechol Miyad Shabor. To eat immediately when you do borer. Shkem Pasak Sefer Tanya. It's a Rishon, not the Baal of Tanya. Rabbi Yerucham Chem Mashim Ma'ariel. And he says in the back, it's V'ayin Magen Avraham, Siva Siman Kotov Kuvdal, Zliv Kontas, Shehich Mer Kamariel. They're machmir like the Mariel. But says somebody who was mako to do borer legumes, solas out of ochel, even though he could have done before Yontif, he can rely on he has what to rely on, and even his borer to leave for another meal. So it's best in such cases where you could have been borer from before Yontif to be borer ochel mitoch solas. Which is definitely a shinoi, and then most of the world is noeg like that. Okay, I'm not sure I've ever heard of people being noeg like that, but it's quite possible. Zayin. I think most people do bora on Yontif like they do on Shabbos just out of habit. Zayin. Kosar ben Ramah b'sov base for losing mubot name. There's different types of nuts. And yishtab which bok vadayin. They pay they're still in their shells. So mikra kliva psolos. If the shells not called psolos, came to chay b'achi. Because the natural comatose by dime shells, by dime rum, they're still mixing together. I can't show. Vikshul amam folshim, they have folshim masses among our taz. Came a loivi rock peirush or Rambam. It's the only brings down the Rambam. Are chiluk b'nei mashari dvogin. So she didn't say anything else. Came shumatli bargam b'psos muruba. Anyway, it's matter to do borer. Rakaturis gives a Torah mentions him mishum the day because according to him, shepsulas muruba when there's more psulas also legamri because the ochos bottom psulas. So in that, the Torah, Kasab losing botany main, okay, that's not true by nuts. Well, if that's Ram, Kohen Ram is superfluous. Yesh Kasab, those who wrote the Gam, that's Ram, Yeshnaf Kimina. The Yom Ram, there is a ramification. Losing botany with nuts, Yechol Bar Beis, but you can do any bar you want. This is the Yam Shel Shlema. Bali Gam Bahem Muchuyev, Gam Bahem Muchuyev, Libor Mashatircha Pchusa. Thousand way around say, and I'm not sure if they're arguing Shlema, but it seems that they are. That you also have to be borrowed whatever is less of it in whatever manner is less of a tircha. This I think but I think there's another meaning here. And any time when there's food and refuse, you're allowed to move the refuse when you need to select it out. But otherwise, the below says muktzim. Losing mushkedim ain't okay. That's what they're saying. That nuts. It's not like that. It's a nice shot. Since they're not yet separate from the food, shame ochel they have the name of ochel. More time tilton, they're allowed to be carried, moved. Even if it's not the time for the brera to take, even if it's not the time when actually being borrowed them.